At 6 a.m. on Monday, I pulled my car out of the garage, gearing up to catch the 6:45 train into Manhattan. We lived in Nassau Shores, a small, quiet suburb on Long Island's South Shore. I took a moment to make sure the garage door was fully closed before I left. A couple of weeks ago, I had forgotten to check, and Emily had called me at work, absolutely livid. She scolded me for not caring about her safety, worried that someone might have broken into the house. I apologized and promised to be more vigilant. Though she eventually calmed down, she kept on about how careless I had been. Things have been strained at home ever since, and I couldn't quite figure out why she was still so worked up. I'm Mark Thompson, 27, with light brown hair and a neatly trimmed beard. I run the foreign exchange desk at a major bank, making profitable trades. My knack for timing has earned me 2 promotions in the last 2 years. Emily, also 27 but a few months my senior, has striking jet black hair and Mediterranean features. She works for a national medical insurance company in Huntington, about 25 minutes from home. Her boss, Robert Lewis, is a tall, muscular guy I've met at company events. There was something about him that rubbed me the wrong way, though I never mentioned it to Emily. After making sure the garage door was shut, I tuned the satellite radio to a country station. The first song was about a man's love for his bar, but the second one really hit home. It talked about the issues in my marriage, emotional distance, minor grievances, and unfulfilling intimacy. Lost in the song, I missed a green light until cars started honking. I pulled into a parking lot to finish listening before heading to the train station. I caught the earlier 6:30 train to Penn Station. On the ride, I reflected on how I met Emily. It was July, right after my 16th birthday, while I was mowing the lawn. A moving van arrived at the Miller's house nearby. Mr. Miller had passed away, and his widow was moving in with family, so the house was sold. Following the van, a BMW pulled up, and out stepped Mr. and Mrs. Scott Edwards. From the back seat emerged Emily, the most stunning girl I had ever seen. She was a few months older than me, sporting short hair, denim shorts, and a halter top. When she smiled at me, I was instantly captivated. A few days later, I saw Emily and her mom, Sophia, outside. Summoning my courage, I introduced myself. Sophia soon left us with some iced tea, giving us a bit of privacy. Emily and I hit it off immediately and spent the rest of the summer together. There were no romantic gestures, just the simple pleasure of each other's company. When school began, we shared lunches and the bus ride home, but not any classes. I asked her to the October harvest dance, and she agreed. However, as the school year went on, Emily started hanging out with new friends, especially the cheerleaders, and aimed to join their squad. We continued to sit together on the bus and talk every day. On the day of the dance, my dad drove us there. As we entered, some football players snickered and laughed. I asked Emily what was up, but she just shrugged and said, "Who cares?" We enjoyed ourselves dancing until a slow song came on. Just as I asked Emily to dance, Jacob Wilson, the star linebacker, walked up and said, "Let's go, babe," to Emily. Without a second glance at me, she went with him. I was stunned and turned to my friend Ryan, who said, "You just got dumped." Emily and Jacob danced closely, clearly familiar with one another. I felt utterly humiliated. After the dance, Jacob and Emily joined the football team, with Jacob holding onto her possessively. I was too intimidated to confront him. Later, Jacob taunted me, saying, "You didn't think a nerd like you could get a girl like that, did you?" He laughed and walked away. Emily never came back to me that night, enjoying herself with her new friends. I stayed behind, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me leave early. As the dance wrapped up, I reluctantly approached Emily and Jacob's table. I told her, "Emily, my dad will be here soon. I need to take you home." Jacob retorted, "Get lost, Thompson. She's going home with me." I snapped, "Emily, I don't care how you get home. If you don't come with me, my dad will tell your mom what happened." I walked away, indifferent to whether she walked home alone. Eventually, Emily came over and tried to make small talk. "Did you have a good time at the dance, Mark?" she asked. I was incredulous. "Are you serious? You dumped me for Jacob Wilson." "So no, I didn't have a good time." I saw my dad's car pull up and started walking towards it, with Emily hurrying to catch up. "My dad," sensing something was wrong, asked, "Did you enjoy the dance?" I didn't answer, and he looked puzzled. Emily waited by the rear door, but I got in the front seat, leaving her to get in alone. My dad was furious. "Get out and open the door for your date," he ordered. "I would if she was my date," I replied. My dad could sense the tension. Emily climbed into the back, and we drove home in silence. When we arrived at Emily's house, her mom was waiting at the door. My dad got out, but I stayed in the car. Emily's mom looked concerned as Emily walked past her without a word. When my dad returned, he asked, "What happened?" I told him. "She found someone she liked better at the dance." My dad said, "Forget her, son. There are plenty of fish in the sea." After that, I ignored Emily. She started riding with Jacob Wilson and eventually joined the cheerleading team. I ended up making the honor roll while I ignored Emily. She started hanging out with Jacob Wilson and joined the cheerleading squad. After graduation, I earned a full scholarship to Wharton, while Emily began working. My parents threw a big graduation bash and invited the Edwards, but not Emily. When Mrs. Edwards sat next to me, she said, "I thought you two were a great couple. I'm sorry things didn't work out." We chatted casually until she asked, "What happened that night?" I responded, "We realized we wanted different things out of life." Mrs. Edwards seemed like she had more to say but didn't press further. She wished me well and left. I started my job at the bank in mid-June and found a place in Soho. The job was hectic, leaving little room for a social life. I quickly learned that real-world work was a far cry from school. It had been 4 months since I'd seen my parents. One evening, my mom called, inviting me to spend the weekend at home. She mentioned my old room was ready and I missed her cooking. Taking the train was the easiest option, and their house was just an 8-block walk from the station. Halfway there, a car pulled up and honked. It was my high school friend Olivia, yelling, "Hey, stranger, need a lift?" "Definitely. It's sweltering out here," I said, hopping into the back seat. Ryan, another old friend, was driving. We caught up on the past 4 years. "I didn't know you two were a couple. How long has that been going on?" I asked. Olivia flashed her wedding band. 2 years now," Ryan said with a smile. "I had no clue," I replied, feeling a pang of sadness. "I guess I haven't been a great friend, have I?" "That's crazy," Olivia said. "We haven't exactly been in touch either. It's just life." "Thanks, Olivia," I said, feeling relieved. "It's really nice seeing you both." Ryan then invited me to a party at their place the next night. Olivia gave him a look that I didn't quite get at the time. "Sure, I'd love to. Are any of our old friends coming?" I asked. "Yes, quite a few," Olivia replied. "Great, I'll bring some beer." "What time and where?" I asked. 7:30 at 135 Remsen Street, Ryan said as they dropped me off at my parents' house. I was looking forward to the party and catching up with old friends. At the party, I was chatting with David Johnson when I felt a tap on my shoulder and heard, "Hi neighbor, long time no see." It was Emily, looking as stunning as ever. I was hit with flashbacks of her with Jacob Wilson. I turned back to David, but Emily's friend confronted me. "That was rude," she said. "Not as rude as what she did to me," I retorted. "Mark, please, you can't still be mad about that night." "It's been 6 years," Emily said. "I sure can," I snapped, walking away. Olivia rushed to comfort Emily while Ryan pulled me aside, asking me to apologize to keep the peace. I found Emily in the kitchen. "Can we talk alone?" I asked. Emily's friend was reluctant, but Olivia persuaded her to give us some space. After a few awkward moments, I began, "Emily, I'm sorry for what I said. That night hurt me deeply. Maybe it's time to move on." "You're right, Mark. I acted terribly and deserved what you said. I never apologized. Would you accept my apology now?" Emily asked. "Thank you, Emily." "Yes, I accept," I said. Emily hugged me, and we shared a passionate kiss. Olivia and Ryan walked in, with Olivia exclaiming, "I'll be damned. Honey, looks like you didn't know what you were doing." Ryan let out a sigh of relief and puffed out his chest, saying, "Damn right, and don't you forget it." We all laughed and rejoined the party. Emily and I started dating again, and 9 months later, we were married. The conductor's announcement jolted me back to the present. As the train pulled out, I reflected on the past 3 months of my marriage. I was convinced my wife was cheating on me. It felt irrational to base this suspicion on a country song, but everything seemed to fit. My usual intuition was sounding alarm bells. At the office, William Clark noticed something was off and followed me to my desk. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing," I replied. "Nonsense," William said. "I can't let you gamble with the bank's money today. Either tell me what's up or go home." I sighed and admitted, "I think Emily is having an affair." "Are you sure?" he asked. "No, just a gut feeling," I confessed. "Your instincts are usually right. Don't ignore them." "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I'm not sure. I just found out today." "Take it easy. I'll support you. Let me know when you decide what to do." William insisted, "I don't think you're at your best today." He was right. I let my staff handle most of the work for the next 2 weeks, and they seemed to enjoy the freedom. I closed my office door and cried, struggling to imagine life without Emily. My sadness soon turned into anger. Confronting Emily without proof seemed reckless. I needed a plan. After work, I bought voice-activated recorders and set them up around the house and on the phones. By Friday, I had proof of Emily's betrayal. In one recording, the conversation went like this. "Robert, this is Emily. Why are you calling me at home? What if my husband answers?" Emily asked. Robert Lewis responded, "I'd come up with a work excuse. I think we should back off. Mark's acting weird. Has he accused you of anything?" "No, but he's been cold and distant. Maybe we should lay low for a while." "Okay, if you think that's best," Robert said. "I'm going to Miami in 2 weeks. Maybe I can get you to join me. What do you think?" Emily replied, "I don't know. Mark might get suspicious. Let me ask James. If he agrees, you can tell Mark it's a work trip." Emily laughed, and I knew for certain now. Emily was planning a whole week with Lewis. I was overwhelmed by sadness, which quickly turned into anger. I needed solid evidence for a divorce, and I didn't have a plan yet. I got home from work at 7:30 p.m. after a chaotic day of trading, with millions of dollars on the line and my mind elsewhere. Emily was cooking dinner and greeted me with a kiss. "How was your day?" she asked with a rare cheerful tone. I was expecting her to mention her upcoming Miami trip any minute. I spent most of my time outside, trying to avoid her to keep from revealing what I knew. It was hard. "Glad you're in a good mood," I said. "I have good news," she said. "You go first," I replied. "My day wasn't great," I admitted. Emily giggled and said, "I've been asked to attend a seminar in South Beach. All expenses paid at the Victor Hotel. I'll be gone from this Friday until the following Saturday. Do you mind if I go?" She looked at me, trying to read my reaction. There was excitement in her eyes, but also a hint of sadness. 9 days is a long time. "Do you have to go?" I asked. "Mr. Lewis is counting on me. It will be good for my career," she explained. I stared out the front door, knowing our marriage was at a turning point. I quietly said, "If it's important for your job, you can go. When do you leave?" "Did you say I could go?" she asked, surprised. I nodded, too choked up to speak. Emily hugged me and said, "Thank you. This means so much to me." I already regretted it. Emily was set to leave from JFK at 10:30 a.m. on Friday. Despite her suggestion that Lewis could take her, I insisted on driving her to the airport. "No way. I want to see you off," I said. She reluctantly agreed, trying to hide her disappointment. Thursday morning, I told William, "Emily is going to Miami for a business trip. They leave Friday and return the following Saturday." William, with a determined look, said, "You're covered. Mr. Stewart gave you carte blanche on the company credit card. Just reimburse for non-business expenses within 2 weeks." I asked how to thank Mr. Stewart, and William chuckled, "A good single malt scotch will do. He got burned in his divorce last year and has a thing against cheating wives." I took the day off to get ready. I bought a round-trip ticket to Miami, a top-of-the-line Canon camera, a carry-on bag, new clothes, and a Yankees cap. Emily wouldn't believe I'd wear one as a Mets fan. I also picked up razors and hair dye. Everything went on the company cards so Emily wouldn't suspect anything. I was all set for my trip. Let the games begin. That night, I asked Emily for her trip details. She was flying out on JetBlue Airlines at 10:30 a.m. from JFK and staying in room 314 at the Victor Hotel. Mr. Lewis would be in a different room. I booked a 1:30 p.m. flight, 3 hours after hers, and secured a room at the same hotel, hoping not to be spotted while checking in. We left early Friday morning to get to the airport by 8:30. The drive was quiet. Emily tried to chat, but I was too distraught, knowing I was driving my wife to an affair. "Mark, are you okay with me taking this trip?" "You said it was fine," she asked. "I know what I said, but the reality of you being gone for 9 days is sinking in." "I'll miss you," I replied. "I understand. I'll miss you too. It's going to be a long, lonely 9 days," she said. "Maybe for me. You'll be at a fancy South Beach hotel," I grumbled. Emily laughed. "It's mostly work, not a vacation." We exchanged small talk and parked at the short-term lot. At the JetBlue curbside check-in, we spotted Lewis waiting. Emily glanced at me, trying to gauge my reaction. Lewis approached, kissed Emily's cheek, and offered his hand to me. I forced a smile and shook it, masking my fury. "Emily, we should get through security." "Nice to see you, Mark," Lewis said. "I'll take good care of Emily," he added. I looked at him and replied, "I know what you mean, Emily." I smiled at Lewis and said, "Thanks for looking out for her." Their faces brightened as they headed toward security. Lewis went first, and as Emily was about to hand her ID to a TSA agent, I pulled her back. "Leaving without saying goodbye?" I asked. Emily hugged and kissed me. "Of course, how thoughtless of me," she said. I embraced her tightly. "I love you. If anything happens, know that you're the best thing that ever happened to me." "I love you too, honey." "I have to go now," she said. As she began to leave, I pulled her back. "Emily, I know I said it was okay, but I don't want you to go. It's not too late. Tell Robert you can't go and come home with me." "Mark, I can't back out now. The tickets are bought, and Mr. Lewis needs me. I know I'm being selfish, but I just don't want you to go. I need you too. Mark, I have to go. Don't try to stop me. I'm committed to this trip. I'll be a great help to Robert. I can't let him down." She looked at me, almost said something, but then walked to the gate and handed her license to the agent. My eyes filled with tears, and I'm sure Emily thought it was because I'd miss her. I walked to where Lewis was waiting and watched Emily with the TSA agent. She seemed flustered but composed by the time she reached us. They proceeded to the X-ray machines, and I watched Emily take off her shoes and place them in the bin. She shrugged at me and then walked through the body scanner. That was my breaking point, and I quickly left the terminal. I was no longer angry, just resigned to the fact that Emily was no longer mine. I moved my car to long-term parking, grabbed my carry-on, and returned to the terminal. I waited until Emily's plane had taken off before going through security myself. I had breakfast and waited for my flight. Upon arriving at the hotel, I checked in without any trouble and got a shave and crew cut at the on-site barber. In my room, I dyed my hair black. With sunglasses and a Yankees cap, I was nearly unrecognizable. The hotel was U-shaped, facing Ocean Avenue, with Emily and Robert's room in the right wing and mine in the center. I had a great view of the pool and the ocean. The hotel had shops on the first floor and an outdoor pool on the second. From my balcony, I could see the entire pool area. Under different circumstances, it would have been romantic, but right now, it felt far from it. I called Emily around 8 o'clock that evening. When she answered, her voice was calm but filled with concern. "Hi, honey. I was worried when you didn't answer at home. Where were you?" "I stopped at a bar with the guys from work," I said, trying to sound casual. She responded with a hint of accusation. "You'd better not be hitting on any girls. Remember, you're a married man. I don't think I could forgive you if you did." Her words stung. She was with Lewis in Miami, yet she had the nerve to question me. "Why would you think I'd cheat? Have I ever given you a reason to doubt me? I trust you completely, which is why I let you go on this trip. You know that, right?" she said. "Of course, honey. I feel the same way. I don't know why I said that." "I know you wouldn't hurt me," she stammered, sounding slightly defensive. "Listen, Mark, I'm really tired from the flight. Will you call tomorrow? I'll be in a better mood," she added, clearly trying to end the conversation. "Sure, Emily, we can talk tomorrow," I replied, though my frustration was barely contained. Good night, Mark. I love you, Emily said, her voice softening. Good night, Emily, I said, and ended the call, my heart heavy with unspoken words. Did she even notice I didn't say I love you back? I spent a restless night thinking about what might be happening in room 314. When I woke at dawn on Saturday, I felt the weight of my suspicions heavier than ever. After a quick breakfast, I positioned myself on the balcony, where I could see the pool area. I set up my camera and tripod behind some large fake plants, aiming to capture whatever was happening without being noticed. Emily and Lewis were already at the pool, lounging on chaises. Emily wore a striking red bikini that left little to the imagination. As I zoomed in with the camera, I realized I couldn't hear their conversation. I needed to find a way to eavesdrop. After a while, I caught my first evidence of infidelity. Lewis leaned in, turned Emily's head, and kissed her. Emily eagerly responded, pulling him closer. They kissed several times before eventually getting up and walking off hand in hand. I turned off the camera, overwhelmed with sadness. Seeing the betrayal was worse than merely suspecting it. Determined to get more concrete evidence, I found a local spy store and bought a parabolic microphone that connected to my camera. Disguised to avoid suspicion, I set up the microphone and camera in my room, ready for their next conversation. On Sunday morning, I woke up around 10 a.m., startled from a deep sleep. I worried I might have missed something, but then I saw Emily and Lewis walking out of Lummis Park. I turned on the camera and microphone and made a call to Emily to confirm that the microphone was working. Who is it? Lewis asked as Emily answered the phone. It's Doofus, Emily replied with a laugh. Lewis chuckled, but Emily quickly became concerned. I should take this. Something might have happened. Why else would he call on a Sunday morning? She answered the phone. Mark, is everything okay? Did something happen? She asked, genuine worry in her voice. I wanted to tell her, no, Doofus is fine, but kept my anger in check. Instead, I said, nothing's wrong, honey. I was feeling lonely and just wanted to hear your voice. It's good to know you're worried about me. I worry about you all the time, Mark. It's Sunday morning, and I thought something bad might have happened. You scared me, Emily said, clearly irritated. I was fed up with her attitude. I just wanted to talk to my wife and feel less alone. Sorry to bother you, I said, hanging up before she could respond. It's no bother, she said into the dead phone. I could hear her talking through the parabolic mic. She turned off her phone and walked to a nearby bench. What did he want? Lewis asked. He was lonely and wanted to talk. Why did I snap at him like that? Emily wondered aloud. Lewis replied, Emily, we've been having this affair for 6 months. Maybe you're getting tired of him. It might be time to let him go and get a divorce. Then we could be together openly. Right, she snapped. And your wife won't mind if we go to your house? We won't have to sneak around anymore, she said sarcastically. Robert, you make $38,000 a year. Mark makes almost $200,000. The lovemaking is great, but you're not worth losing Mark's potential. I intend to be there when he becomes CEO. So no divorce. Besides, you'd never leave your wife and kids. You're right, Lewis admitted. But we can still enjoy our time here, right? Right, stud? Emily smiled, taking his hand as they walked out of sight. 6 months of deceit, I thought. She was only staying with me for the money. I needed more proof. Later, I saw Emily walking to the pool in a tangerine cover-up, Lewis following closely. I turned on my camera and mic again. Emily removed her cover-up, revealing a bikini top, and asked Lewis to help with sunscreen. He eagerly complied. A hotel employee soon approached and asked Emily to cover up due to guest complaints. Emily reluctantly put her cover-up back on, and they retreated to their room. I checked the footage and felt I had almost enough evidence. If I could capture them in the act, it would be conclusive. I didn't call Emily that night, and she didn't call me. Monday morning, I woke at 9 a.m., ordered breakfast, and kept a close watch from my balcony, bracing for what would come next. At 6 p.m., Lewis stepped onto their balcony wearing a hotel robe. I aimed my camera and started recording. Emily followed, dressed in a similar robe, and hugged Lewis from behind. Think you can manage another round, stud? She teased. I might need another 30 minutes, she added playfully. You've worn me out, Lewis laughed. They began kissing right there on the balcony. This was the proof of infidelity I needed. While it might not hold much weight in court, it could influence Emily's parents and friends. Since the video was recorded in public, it would be admissible. Watching them, I felt the finality of my situation. The video was undeniable proof of her betrayal, compounded by her admission during our Sunday call. Seeing it was almost too much to bear. I booked a flight home for the next day at 3 p.m. and confirmed my reservation. With a sense of purpose, I decided to call Emily, hoping to catch them in the act. She answered on the fifth ring, sounding out of breath. "Hello?" she mumbled. "Emily? Are you okay? You sound out of breath," I asked with concern. "I was in the shower when I heard the phone," she explained. I grabbed a towel and ran to answer. "You'd get some naughty ideas if you saw me right now," she added, trying to sound flirtatious. "I'm sure I would," I replied. "How was your day? Was the seminar productive?" "Yes, Mark. We had a good day at the seminar," she said, though her tone was hesitant. There was something in her voice that suggested surprise and disappointment that I hadn't brought up phone lovemaking, as I usually would. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, her voice softening. "I feel down. I miss your voice and your presence. The bed feels so big and lonely without you. But you know what that's like, right? You're spending your nights alone, aren't you?" I took her hint and responded, "Right, honey? That's right. Listen, Mark, I'm freezing and wet. I have to go now. I'll talk to you tomorrow, okay? I love you," she said, clearly eager to end the call. "Right. Goodbye, Emily," I replied, hanging up before she could say more. I packed up my equipment and clothes, feeling a pang of hunger. I went to the hotel restaurant with my camera to review the footage. As I walked in, I spotted Emily and Lewis sitting in a booth. I chose a table 2 tables away, with my back to Emily and facing Lewis. I discreetly took a couple of photos without them noticing. Emily glanced my way once, but didn't recognize me. I reviewed the footage while eating, sneaking glances at them. Emily looked my way again, but still didn't seem to recognize me. After finishing my meal, I left before they did. That night, sleep eluded me. I sat on the balcony at 7 a.m., having moved the plants back inside. I no longer cared if they saw me. I had the evidence. At 7:15, a white van with blue FF lettering pulled up. Emily and Lewis climbed in, and it drove off. I'll be damned, I thought. They're actually doing some work this week. I had 2 final tasks for the morning. First, I accessed one of the hotel's guest computers and printed 2 of the photos I had taken. Then, I went to the check-in desk and inquired about who would be working the desk on Saturday morning. I learned it was a young man named Michael. After chatting briefly, I slipped him $200, hoping to arrange a little surprise for Emily and Lewis when they checked out. By Saturday morning, I checked out of the hotel and flew back to New York, ready to handle matters at home. Tuesday morning, Robert and I headed to our seminars. By evening, we were both exhausted. Robert fell asleep early, while I waited up for Mark's call. By 10 p.m., I was fuming that he hadn't called. By 11 p.m., I started worrying. Did he know something? Should I call him? But I convinced myself Mark didn't know anything, even though sleep was elusive. Wednesday was a repeat of Tuesday. Exhausted, we ordered dinner in. After a quick shower, Robert wanted to make love, but I was too anxious waiting for Mark's call. When it didn't come, I panicked. Mark not calling 2 nights in a row was unusual. Even Robert noticed and became concerned. By 9 a.m. on Thursday, I called my mom to check on Mark, explaining that I hadn't heard from him since Monday. She agreed to go over to the house. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. It was our home phone. "Mark, I'm so glad you called. Are you okay?" I answered quickly. "It's me, Emily," Mom said. "Mark isn't here. I checked every room. His clothes are in the closets, and the computer is in the office. What's going on?" "Nothing, Mom," I lied. "We had a little argument. I guess he's mad at me. I'm relieved he's not lying unconscious somewhere. If you hear from him, please ask him to call me." "I will. This is so unlike him, Emily. You must have done something really bad," Mom said, concern evident in her voice. "No, Mom, nothing like that. Just have him call me. Thanks. See you soon." "Okay, honey. I miss you. See you Saturday." That night, After the call with Mom, I was increasingly worried about Mark's whereabouts. I tried calling him again, but both his home and cell lines went straight to voicemail. I left messages expressing how much I missed him and asking him to call me if he was upset. The uncertainty was gnawing at me, and I feared our marriage might be over. Friday dragged on, and I wasn't surprised when I didn't receive a call from Mark. Robert was frustrated by the lack of intimacy, but I was too preoccupied with my anxiety to care. On Saturday morning, we checked out of the hotel and headed to the lobby. There, the desk attendant, Michael, picked up the phone as soon as he saw us and had a brief conversation. As Robert handed over our key cards and credit card, Michael processed the payment and addressed us, "Mr. Lewis, Mrs. Thompson, I hope you enjoyed your stay and will visit us again." I was taken aback when Michael called me by my real name. "Excuse me, what did you just call me?" I asked, confusion and concern in my voice. Michael gave me a knowing smile. "You're Mrs. Thompson, aren't you?" I responded with a hint of defensiveness. "Why do you think that?" Michael placed 2 photos on the counter, one of Robert in the restaurant and another of me at the pool. "A man checked out earlier and asked if I knew these people. I told him you were the Lewis." He corrected me, saying that while Robert Lewis is his name, the woman is Emily Thompson. My heart raced. "When did he check out?" I asked urgently. Michael tapped on his computer. "Mr. Mark Thompson checked in last Friday at 4 and checked out on Tuesday at noon." I was stunned. "Oh my God, Robert. He was here all weekend," I exclaimed. Michael nodded. "I have something for you." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a note that read, "Emily, goodbye, doofus." I felt my legs weaken, leaning on Robert for support. Robert took the note, read it, and whispered, "Let's get out of here." Before we could leave, Michael called out, "Mr. Lewis, I have something for you too." Robert reluctantly accepted another envelope and read its contents. The note said, "Did you think you'd get off scot-free? I spent hours this morning showing your wife all the evidence. This is just the beginning. I'll make sure your return isn't what you expected." Robert's face went pale as he looked out the window, dropping the note in shock. I picked it up and quickly stuffed it into my purse. Michael, seemingly satisfied, picked up the phone and said, "Did you hear it all? Was it what you expected?" I was overwhelmed. "Is that my husband?" I asked. Michael smiled enigmatically but didn't respond. "Let's go. We have a plane to catch," I told Robert. On the way to the airport, I called my mom and asked her to meet us at JFK. "Isn't Mark picking you up?" she asked, puzzled. "I don't know. We had an argument, and he's upset with me," I said, trying to hide my anxiety. Mom's concern grew. "Emily, what exactly was your argument about?" "Nothing you need to worry about," I lied. "That's nonsense. It must have been serious for him not to call for 3 days." "What did you do?" she pressed. I started to cry. "I haven't done anything that can't be fixed. Please come to the airport in case Mark doesn't show up." "If you've done what I think, he might not be there," Mom said. "I'll pick you up." We arrived at the airport, and I was anxious to see Mark. As we exited the plane, I saw Mom waiting. "Is Mark here?" I asked desperately. She shook her head. "No." Robert, looking defeated, made a call but found out Mark wasn't coming. He slumped on a bench, tears streaming down his face. Mom took him by the arm and said, "Let's go. I'll drive you both home." On the drive, Mom gave me disapproving glances while Robert stared out the window, clearly heartbroken. When we got home, I asked Robert to wait in the car and rushed inside, shouting, "I'm home, Mark." But there was no answer. I checked the bedroom. It was empty. I ran to Mark's office, and it was vacant too. The realization hit me hard. He had been planning his departure for days. Mom handed me an envelope labeled "Divorce Paperwork," along with a DVD. I opened the envelope, my hands trembling. "Whether Robert saves his marriage is his decision, and saving yours isn't up to you either. That's Mark's choice. He's had days to think about it, and you already have divorce papers on the table. If you want to keep Mark, you need to talk to him soon and give him a compelling reason to reconsider. Don't wait too long. He's had a head start." As soon as Mom left, I called Mark. He hadn't answered any of my previous calls, but I had to try. To my surprise, he picked up on the second ring. His voice was flat, devoid of any anger. Emily, what do you want? Mark asked. Mark, we need to talk. Will you meet with me? I pleaded. Sure. When? Tomorrow, anytime you can, I replied. Okay, tomorrow at 2. Goodbye. His tone was cold, as if he had already made up his mind about us. The next afternoon, I saw his car pull into the driveway. Instead of coming to the front door, Mark walked around to the rear. I rushed into the kitchen and sat at the table, which was set for lunch. Mark walked in, surprised to see me. Hi, Mark. Thanks for meeting with me, I said, trying to sound calm. He nodded and sat down, pushing the plate away when I offered him lunch. I've already eaten, he said, his expression urging me to start. Mark, I'm so sorry, I began, but he interrupted me. I know. You're sorry you got caught. Or sorry for cheating, he asked. Yes, I'm sorry I got caught, but mostly, I'm sorry I ever started cheating. The pain I've caused you is tearing me apart. Can you forgive me? Even if you do, I don't know if I can forgive myself. He stayed silent, his emotions flickering across his face. Finally, he spoke, surprising me. Do you know that in the mornings I would lie in bed and watch you sleep? Or after my shower, I'd sit and watch you. I knew, I said softly, recalling the moments when I'd catch him watching me and say, What? He would smile, laugh quietly, and kiss my forehead. You looked so peaceful, so beautiful to me. I'd gaze at your face, your eyes, every curve. I thought how lucky I was to have you, my guardian angel. But now, the color and light you brought to my life are gone. Since Wednesday, every morning I still smile, thinking how lucky I am to have you, until I remember. Then the pain returns. Every morning, I love you a little less, and the pain is not as intense. I realize my mom was right. I waited too long. If I had come home Wednesday night, maybe I could have made a difference. Now it's too late. Mark has decided on divorce, the last thing I want. Please, Mark, don't make a hasty decision. I know I've been terrible and don't deserve any consideration, but I beg you, give me a chance to make it up to you. Let me show you I can be the wife you deserve. Please, give me a second chance. I waited for his response, seeing tears in his eyes. A tear rolled down his cheek, and I wiped it away with my thumb. I swore you wouldn't make me cry again. Now look at me, he said sadly. Mark, on the DVD, you mentioned this was the second time you cried over me. When was the first time? Emily, I fell in love with you the first time I saw you get out of your dad's car. My best memories are of that summer we spent together. My worst memory is when you ditched me at the harvest dance for another guy. You left me to be ridiculed by Jacob Wilson and the football team. I cried many nights alone in my bed. So, Monday night was the second time I cried over you. The tear you just wiped away is the third. I'm so sorry, Mark, I said, tears streaming down my face. I know I keep saying it, but it was just foolish lovemaking. He's gone, and I don't care. I will never see him again. All I need is you. I don't know, Emily. I saw you do things in public. You went braless and unclothed for him and let him touch you at the pool. He shook his head, sending shivers through my body. I heard the scream. I know I can't compete with that. I won't compete with another man. I won't compete with the memory of that other man for my wife. If we stay together, I will always be competing with his ghost. You won't have to compete with anybody, I said, my voice breaking. You will never understand unless it happens to you, Mark said, shaking his head sadly as he began to rise from his seat. I felt a wave of desperation as I watched him stand, fearing that my marriage was slipping away for good. In a frantic bid to hold on to him, I leaped from my chair, knocking it over, and ran to Mark, throwing my arms around him and pleading, Don't go, Mark. Please don't leave me. When I saw your letter at the hotel, I realized how much you and our marriage mean to me. Please forgive me and take me back. Mark's arms loosely wrapped around me, his fingers gently stroking my hair. After a few moments, he placed his hands on my shoulders, gently pushing me back to meet his gaze. I always pictured our future together, Mark said softly. A house with a white picket fence, 2 sons and a daughter. A life filled with anniversaries, weddings, and growing old together. Our love would see us through the tough times. But now, All I see is a gaping void where love once was, a numbing darkness where you used to be. He stepped back, his face a mask of resignation. I have to go. I have something to do. Don't go, I begged. We have so much to discuss. No, I have to write a thank you letter, he said. What letter could be more important than repairing our marriage? Who are you writing to? I asked, bewildered. Ronnie Millsap, Mark replied. Why? What does he have to do with this? I demanded. He helped me end a painful chapter in my life, Mark said. He turned and walked out, whistling a tune I later learned was a stranger in my house. 5 years later, I found myself in a different place, both physically and emotionally. My wife, Lily, asked me to bring the car around to the front of the house for a Memorial Day cookout at my parents' place. I exited through the back door, passing the newly built tin garage, and walked to the cliff overlooking the beach and across the Long Island Sound to the Connecticut shore. No longer living in the rented house in Nassau Shores, we now resided in the old town of Muttontown. As I approached the garage, I had to decide which car to take. My eyes settled on garage number 5. I clicked the remote, and the door lifted to reveal my latest pride and joy. I closed the garage door, started the engine, and reveled in the purring of the rebuilt 390 V8 Ford engine. As the car cleared the garage, I lowered the convertible top and drove around to the circular drive in front of the house. I got out, admiring my 1961 Ford Thunderbird convertible with its gleaming chrome, black paint, and black roof. Lily came out and frowned. The baby and I can't ride with the top down. You'll have to put it up. I sighed, okay, I'll put it up. But it looks so much cooler with the top down. If you ever want me to ride with the top down again, you better put it up now, Lily said. As I put the top up, memories flashed back to when I first got the car and we drove around with the top down. Lily had pulled her top down playfully, and I quickly hit the button to raise it. She had smiled smugly, knowing how to wield her considerable charms. I had met Lily 2 months before my divorce from Emily was finalized. The connection I felt with Lily began at a charity fundraiser. Mr. Stewart, the bank president, and his ex-wife were hosting an event for Romanian orphans, a cause dear to them despite their animosity towards each other. I was seated at their table, next to his ex-wife. There was an empty seat beside me, and as I settled in, I noticed a card reserved for I. Harris. Mr. Stewart, with a mischievous smile, introduced me to the stunning woman who took the empty seat, Ionina Harris, a Victoria's Secret model. I later learned Lily was a Romanian orphan herself and on the charities board. That night, Lily shared her harrowing experiences in Romanian orphanages, nearly bringing me to tears. I felt an immediate desire to protect her, and she sensed my empathy. Despite many men asking her to dance, she chose to ask me. We danced, and our connection deepened. We dated for 2 years before marrying at Mr. Stewart's estate in Southampton, New York. Our first year was wonderful, and when Lily expressed a desire for a baby, I was thrilled. Despite her modeling career, she insisted that having a baby was her greatest wish. We laughed together, and soon after, our son, Mark Jr., was born. On that Memorial Day, after settling Mark Jr. into his car seat, we got into the Thunderbird. The only non-stock feature was the air conditioner, which Lily preferred to keep her hair pristine. As we arrived at my dad's backyard barbecue, I was startled to see Emily and her mom, Sophia, talking with my mother. Lily, carrying Mark Jr., walked to the table, and my mom quickly took her favorite grandson from her. I approached my dad, asking quietly, "What are they doing here?" "Keep your voice down," Dad said. "Your mom invited them. She and Sophia have grown close since Scott passed away. Emily was all alone, so your mom thought it'd be nice to include her too. After you two divorced, I knew she married Jacob Wilson. I didn't think she was that foolish, but she did end up with Lewis. I figured they'd divorce, but his wife took him back, which made a difference with their kids. For a while, I hired a PI to keep tabs on him and made sure he didn't land any good jobs by spreading word of his poor performance. It wasn't long before Jane Lewis figured out what I was doing and called me. She said it wasn't just affecting Robert, but also her and their kids. She begged me not to take it out on her children. Dad's expression softened. I didn't admit to being behind it, but I assured her he'd have an easier time getting a job now. She thanked me and apologized for Robert ruining my marriage. I let the PI go and moved on. It was a relief to drop that baggage. I took Mark Jr. from Lily and greeted Emily and Sophia. We moved to a bench near the kitchen door. Sophia Mitchell sat beside me, reaching out to hold my 8-month-old son. We sat quietly as she played with him, tears in her eyes. He should have been my grandson. I would have been the best grandma. You know that, don't you, Mark? I noticed the toll the past 5 years had taken on Sophia. She had always liked me and was excited when Emily and I got married. I know you would have, Mom. You were a wonderful mother to Emily, and I'm sure you'd have been a great grandma too. Thank you, Mark. I've missed you these past 5 years. And congratulations on your promotion. Your dad tells me you're now the executive vice president. Yes, Mr. Stewart retired, and William Clark moved up to the top spot. He made me executive vice president of operations. If I keep up the good work, I should be in line for president when William retires. Emily wanted to talk to you, but was nervous about approaching you. Can I tell her it's okay? Sophia asked. Sure, Mom. It's been 5 years. I'm sure we can talk civilly. Sophia went back to the table and spoke with Emily. Before Emily could get up, Lily approached me, saying, Be gentle with her, Mark. She's very fragile. Don't upset her. I nodded, and Lily walked away as Emily came toward me. Hi, Mark. You look good. Hi, Emily. So do you, I replied. Lily is beautiful, inside and out, and a good person. I can tell, Emily said. Thank you. I've been lucky to have 2 wonderful wives. That's not entirely true, Emily said, shaking her head. I may have looked good on the outside, but I wasn't as great on the inside. That's not true. You're beautiful inside and out. I think you were blinded by Robert Lewis. I'm sure it wasn't all my fault, I said. No, it wasn't all your fault. I have something to clear up from that time 5 years ago. It's about the phone call where I called you a doofus. I don't know why I said that, but that's not why I brought up that day. It's about what I said to Robert. I mentioned you'd be president of the bank and how much money you'd make. I realized it sounded like I wanted to be with you for the money, which wasn't my intention at all. I was proud of your success and just wanted to share in it. When I first heard it, I thought it was about the money, I admitted. But when Lily heard what you said, she suggested I might have misunderstood. She thought you were bragging about me to Robert, which made me feel better about you. That's when I started to forgive you. There's one more thing I need to thank you for, Emily continued. What you did for Jane Lewis. She called me crying about how you were making Robert's life difficult. I gave her your number, and she called you. She wanted to thank you for helping him find a job that could support their family. I'm glad it worked out for them, I said. I never thought much about Jane or the kids after letting the PI go. I'm just relieved it's over. Emily's eyes welled up with tears as I stood up and hugged her. We walked back to the table, where Lily smiled warmly at me. We all sat down, and the rest of the day was filled with pleasant conversations and laughter. On the ride home that night, with the convertible top up, Lily had her top down. It turned out to be another wonderful day.